Hello, it's Andy Graham of Hobo Traveler. A reader, Chris, asked me a very good question because it's a comparison. He wanted to know how the temperature of Miami, Florida compared to, not the temperature, but the sunlight intensity of Miami, Florida compared to the sunlight intensity of Ghana or Togo in West Africa. The reason why this is good is because everything's a comparison. And the concept of tropics is a very complicated thing. In a way, it's a geography question. The tropics is actually 23.5 degrees above the equator to 23.5 degrees below the equator. I think one is called the Cancer and the other one's Capricorn. And that's the distance the sun travels above the equator. So technically, the question is Miami, how tropical is Miami? It's actually not tropical because it's above the 23.5 degree zone. So, but the better question is what you really want to know when you think the tropics is you want to know how much do you fight the weather? Okay, because that's the end thing. Is in America we fight the weather. Like I'm from Indiana, we fight the weather. It's at 42.5 degrees or something above the equator. And we fight the weather 7 months a year. I have to wear a jacket. Then during the summer, I actually have to fight the weather again because you're trying to stay cool because it's so humid. But if you go to Barcelona, Spain, which is they have palm trees there, and they're the exact same degrees above the equator as Indiana. There's no thing, but the warm winds of the Mediterranean make it kind of tropical. Okay, but it's not. Okay, so what you want to know in the end is how they compare climate-wise and what is more comfortable, and how much you're fighting the weather. Is Florida tropical? No, because you're really going to have to fight the weather probably about 8 months a year. Now, what's nice, see, is if you're in Ghana and you're at the equator, you're going to acclimate, and eventually you're going to kind of get used to it, and you're not going to pay much attention to the weather, because it's no radical changes. It's almost always kind of the same. And it's going to be always hot, okay, at what you call it, at sea level, okay? Now, if you want paradise, that's places that are in the tropics that are 500 feet above the earth, which means it's cool. And at paradise is someplace like Lake Atitlan, because you don't need a furnace and you don't need air conditioning. This is paradise. And I really recommend people find places like Baguio, Philippines, Vicabamba, Medellin, Colombia. Anywhere at 1,500 meters above sea level is paradise. That's where you don't have to fight the elements. Now, you do have to fight the rain. And everybody's whinging about the rain. And so the higher you go, the more the cloud, the more it rains and stuff. But the question should always be, how much do I have to fight the elements? And at the tropics, you're hot all the time. So, but the great thing is that if you don't use air conditioning, and you're wise, you try to get a house with good ventilation, and after a while you just sort of acclimate, and you don't really think about it. But in Ghana and Togo, I have to change my shirt all the time because I'm sweating, and I'm thinking. So the ideal climate is the climate is really at 5,000 feet above sea level, inside the 23.5 degrees above sea level, or 23.5 degrees below sea level. That means that you'll never get too cold, never too hot, you never get too sweaty, you just sort of always are in paradise. And I can tell you that the tropics is not paradise, it's just that it's better for us people that can't handle the cold. And there's people that cannot handle the cold. But the truth is they don't handle the heat either. And there's something mystical, romanticized about saying you're in the tropics, especially tropical Caribbean island. I'm in Sosua, Dominican Republic right now, and I'm on the beach, and there's a thing. But you got, if you really want to slice and dice this, and you're especially thinking about traveling, retiring abroad, you got to call me, pay me the $50 an hour for consulting, and let me ask you a bunch of questions. Because I'll say things like, well, how often do you go to the beach? And you go, Well, once or twice a year. And you want to go live in a beach paradise. I mean, maybe you're not the beach person, because people that I went to the beach all the time in Indiana, okay, and I go to the beach all the time here. But I can really qualify you as your needs and help you compare and work you through and try to get it down to a list of 4 or 5 places you can try before you just jump to paradise, tropical paradise, and find out it's not paradise. So is Miami, Florida tropical? No, literally it's not tropical. Is it sort of close to tropical, the dream of paradise? Well, yeah, if you're leaving northern Canada, it's pretty tropical. It's a comparison. So this is the end game. You got to compare places and try to do it. And a lot of people really don't like the rain. And I personally avoid high tourist season. I don't like high tourist season. And I don't want to live in air conditioning, because any air that has been conditioned to either be hot or cold, I don't think it's healthy. So truly, if I was going to say to my mom and dad or anybody of my friends to where to live, they need to go to some place like Lake Atitlan or whatever. Now the problem here is, then you got other questions like, do you like girls? What do you like to do? Do you like to go to the beach? And that just keeps begetting more problems. And again, the only way I know how to do it is to have a conversation with people and try to demystify, romanticize their views. Because I've lived in all these places for years at a time. And I've lived in 90 countries, and you know, I don't stay anywhere less than 2 months, really. That takes off the rose-colored glasses, and I see the climate and the reality for what it is. But, you know, it's a whole bundle of things, right? So, I don't know. Very good question, because the minute you compare 2 things, I get excited. The minute you just want to say, this place is this, I say, hey, it's a comparison. Violence, this place is extremely violent compared to the other 90 countries I've gone to. But the beach is one of the best on the planet. So, you know, you got your yin and your yang. Okay, Andy Graham trying to answer Chris's question. Is Florida tropical? Not literally, but if you compare it to northern Canada, it's very tropical.